Welcome back to another episode of Flawless Playing Garage, where today we're going to do a little bit of work, a couple of small upgrades to this, my 20-foot enclosed trailer. Upgrades are going to be fairly straightforward. We're going to paint the inside, paint the floor, make it slightly more Corvair resistant, if you catch my drift, from oil leaking onto things, and maybe a little bit of functional upgrade with a little workbench, little tool storage, and some other stuff as well. Now, I bought this trailer about a year ago as an upgrade to a really nice aluminum flatbed, open deck car hauling trailer that I purchased from a friend, used. That was a great trailer. It worked really well, pulled really smooth, frankly pulled much better behind, my current half-ton tow vehicle than what this big behemoth enclosed trailer pulls. But there was an important thing I needed, and that was storage in the winter. And this makes a pretty handy extra garage spot when I need it, when I've run out of spots in the main garage. And that is a great segue into today's sponsor. Today's sponsor is overspending. Overspending is that thing you do when you have to buy stuff to hold your stuff because you have too much stuff. And today we're gonna spend money upgrading the stuff that holds the stuff because we have too much. Oh well, stay tuned. Thanks. Now, I am just going to go ahead and assume that you've seen people paint things before, so I didn't record the actual process, but fairly simple. Just some high gloss cabinet paint in a light gray latex on the walls over top of some primer sealer to just reduce the number of coats I had to put on and get a good adhesion on the OSB walls. You can see there's a decent amount of texture in the OSB here, so it did take a lot more paint than I had expected. You're supposed to get about 400 square feet per gallon. I've only got 250, 260 square feet, something like that, of wall here. And 1 gallon for that first primer coat was not enough. I ran out a little bit and had to substitute some other white latex I had laying around. But primer's done, light gray top coat's done, walls are good. Now, getting ready to do the floor. So cleaning, a little bit of sanding. This is relatively new. Like I said, I've only had this trailer about a year, but I managed to drip some oil various places, spilled fuel in a couple spots. So we're gonna just sand, or I have already lightly sanded those areas where there was a little bit of staining. It's a little bit cleaned up now. Vacuum it out, get everything clean. I am planning on coating the inner wheel wells as well. Not sure why, just kind of for a little bit of consistency, I guess. And then we're gonna bring it out here. We're gonna coat the ramp, and I have removed this lower, flip out piece of the ramp, mostly so that I can get the coating underneath where the bracket goes, and to make it a little bit easier to coat both sides of the little flip out part of the ramp. Just wanna go for kind of maximum weather resistance there. This is the stuff that we are going to use today to coat that interior floor. Now, there are several different versions of the Rustoleum product. Note that this one is the Professional. The Professional is like an oil-based, says like industrial grade performance, solvent-based epoxy. This one is supposed to be tougher, longer lasting, etc. So we'll find out whether it's worth it or not, but please note, this is not the standard kit that you might find at Home Depot. So the stuff really wasn't too difficult to work with, which was really nice. The pot life is pretty short. You only have a couple hours once you've mixed it to get everything down. So I was a little nervous about getting everything down in time, but really it wasn't too bad. I, as you can see, basically worked my way down the sides of the trailer, painting with a brush and a small roller by hand the sides, and then doing the floor with a large roller as I came back. I really just aimed for one good, thick, consistent coat, and then distributing chips by hand as I worked my way down. And there we have it. Really happy with the way this came out. Still very fresh, so I won't be able to walk in and give you a tour yet, but overall, really happy with it. I could not figure out a way to actually distribute the chips along the side walls. You know, chucking them directly at it didn't work very well and caused uneven distribution on the floor, so I just left it. And then on the little board that flips down on the end of the ramp, what I did is I just took a couple of nails on my sawhorse. Took my ugliest, nastiest sawhorses too. That's a very important part of the step. I just took a couple nails, that way when I flipped it over onto the wet paint, it's only going to mess up a few little spots. Hopefully nothing I can't live with. So yeah, wish I'd done this a long time ago in the garage. Really wasn't that difficult, although the garage prepping my horrible concrete would be the main problem. But overall, I'm really happy with this. And so what we have here, cheap little LED light strips off of Amazon for 12 volt circuits. A little wire, gets 24 gauge to go between. So on every light, making a little solder connection to connect a length of wire to go between the vertical kind of ceiling supports, ceiling joists, if you will, in the trailer, which bridges to the next light strip, and then another chunk of wire to go to the next light. Stick them all in my fancy dancy little holder, solder them all together, heat shrink the tubing, and then repeat many times. Easily the most annoying part of this is actually getting such tiny wires to twist together successfully. But once you get a decent mechanical connection, a little dab of flux on there to make sure the joint comes clean, then just a dab will do ya. Let that cool off a bit, then we'll shrink the heat shrink and go for the next one. I also wanted to be able to use the V-nose of the trailer to get a little tool storage and random stuff that you need to bring with you to the racetrack, as well as a little workbench, so in case I need to rebuild a carburetor or do some kind of small project, I've got a little work surface. And the way I did this was just mounting some 2x4s with big lag screws into the steel studs that make up, they're inside the walls of the trailer, then kind of boxing everything in, throwing some plywood down on top, and then starting in on some vertical supports, which will support not only the bench top itself, but also shelving underneath, and which rest on frame rails underneath the trailer floor. Then it's time to finish up these little LED strips, get them all connected and wired up, and see how they do. Okay, now let's try the lights. Yeah, to be honest, they're kind of like night lights. It glows, but this is not at all what I was hoping for. I wanted enough light to be able to work. This is really disappointing. I might need to rethink this. Yeah. Okay, it was time for an upgrade. We'll give this one a try and see if it's any brighter. Yep, I think that's an improvement. So these lights were 6 watts per fixture as opposed to 1 watt per strip. And there are 108, I think, LEDs in each one as opposed to whatever this is, 15 or 20 in each one. Of course, I don't know the individual LED specs compared to the others, but overall, I think this is going to be much better. I've got 8 of these, so I'm going to figure out what pattern I want to put them up with, and then start redoing all my splicing. Yay! There's never time to do it right, but always time to do it twice. Okay, so these particular lights come with a couple different options. They come with some double-sided tape, some cheap Chinese stuff to go with cheap Chinese lights, and they come with these little clips and some screws. My first attempt was to drill some holes in the little ceiling rafters and put screws in. I have 2 sizes of drill bits that are in this range. I have 2 small and 2 large. So that plan is over with, and we're going with the tape. I happen to have a roll of really nice 3M VHB, which ought to do the trick and handle all kinds of extreme temperatures. So that is just going on the back of these, and they are getting stuck to the ceiling joists. Whatever we want to call these pieces of steel here. Seems to be a really solid mount thus far. Then I am going to solder, please forgive me, Turbo Yoda, the wires together as I was taught many, many years ago in college for electronic engineering, none of which I've done since. Always get a good mechanical connection first, then solder. And when you solder, you apply the heat and the solder to opposite sides of the joint. So we'll get these twisted together well, then just a dab will do ya of the solder. And yes, I have remembered to put my heat shrink on first. So we'll get the next side lights put up, wires clipped and stripped, and then we'll go around and solder them all. Here we go. We're going to call this good for now. We've got shelf on one side for the battery. I'll be getting a little hold down bracket to keep it in place there. I've got my light wiring in place. So up through there and around to my new switch. I need to do some painting there. I still need to put the actual bench top surface on here. I think I'm going to go with some leftover hardwood that I have. We've got the spare mounted. I still haven't decided whether I'm going to extend the bench top here, this extra 10 inches or so. I ended up needing to do this in order to reach between the 2 studs and make sure that I was anchored really well. So I'm either just going to paint all this to make it look a little better and keep this short and small, or I might go ahead and extend the bench top out this way a bit more, which should still leave me room to get long vehicles in here because the hood and bumper would fit underneath this. I set this up fairly high so that even if I had the Escalade in here, I should still be okay to get the nose of it underneath this bench top. Otherwise, I also still need to get the winch mounted. That's going to require some welding underneath to get some metal braces in the place where I need them to be able to bolt the winch down. So that's going to be its own project. But otherwise, we've got paint, we got light, And as usual, we have one thing that doesn't work that needs to be fixed. I have a race coming up in September with the Corvair. I will try to get some actual footage this time. I've been really bad about getting any footage in years past for that, but I'll try to get some of that this time. And that'll be the first big real outing for this trailer, I believe. Fingers crossed that'll go smoothly and well. A big part of the reason for doing this was not only to help everything just last longer, be more durable, be easier, nicer to use, but also because a lot of times we'll camp at that racetrack, and we also tend to get storms from time to time. And when you're in a tent in a storm, things get pretty hairy, and this way we have a trailer we can come into if the storms get bad. Right, Bub? Mm-hmm. Thanks for watching. See you next time.